Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 411 Ground and Pound Radio Show, your mostly weekly look into the wide, wacky, wonderful world of mixed martial arts. I'm Robert Winfrey, I'm your host for this thing, and we're back after a week off and a couple of weeks of non-UFC action, and I can't speak for all of you, but I certainly needed it. Ugh, that was a rough stretch, guys. Real rough stretch. Tonight we will be previewing a card that doesn't actually help my apathy. UFC Fight Night 135. I don't have anything else to say about this card. Before we actually get into parts of it.
Let's just call the show now.
The main event's not a bad fight, all things considered. And you've got a setup for a feel-good moment that's probably not going to end well. I mean, you got to dig a little. Oh, God, Andrew Sanchez is on that card. Yeah, alright. So we'll go over that card. We will also go over all of the major news items that broke since we were last here. Because, again, it's been a couple of weeks. And, stuff happens. Had anything really kind of earth-shattering broken over the last, during our time off, we would have done a show to cover it, but we covered the McGregor announcement on that previous show, so you can go listen to that if you missed our thoughts on the UFC finally signing Khabib versus Conor and all the results.
Pat Mullen had a meltdown.
It happens. It's nice to have the occasional meltdown. It prevents the really catastrophic ones.
It was his first one in about 4 years, so it was building. It was building up.
Yeah, and again, it does. And Pat knows he's always welcome here when he gets the urge to discuss MMA-related things, but he's taking a break at the moment, and it's a good bit of advice for everyone who's not actively paid to do this to take breaks every now and then.
As I don't agree with Luke Thomas on everything, but I agree with him. If you need a break from MMA, you should take a break.
Yeah, it's unless it's your
I think
job.
Pat's at that point right now too. Will he listen to me? I don't know. I guess we'll see.
It comes and goes. Interest in the sport fluctuates as well, so we'll see what happens. So anyway, you can listen to all of that, but you've heard Jeff. Jeff's here with me again. Jeff, it's been a couple of weeks. How are things over in your part of the world?
I'm feeling good, all things considered. My dad had a finger infection, but he's doing okay now and on the mend. So glad Dad's doing okay. I started The Witcher 3 New Game Plus. I'm enjoying that. Just trying to find things I missed beforehand. But I think Witcher 3 is a pretty amazing game that you can still get all this leverage out of it all these years later. And then you have all these multiplayer online games that are just getting rid of story elements and just strictly going for loot boxes and all these things, and it just makes me sad. So it's good to know that CD Projekt Red they have their heads on straight over there in Poland, and they believe in making quality AAA games like The Witcher 3, which has some very good MMA elements in it, by the way. There's some really good there's a very good hand-to-hand combat system in the game I really enjoy, and you can do in some ways I think the fighting in that game works better than what it does in EA Sports UFC.
Probably. Oh, God. I don't care for that game. Alright, anyway, this upcoming... So again, Fight Night 135, it's the UFC's return to Lincoln, Nebraska. This is actually their first event in Lincoln. Their previous events have been in Omaha. And in the main event, they're trying real hard.
This is why Ellenberger is on the card.
Yeah, I know.
It's the obvious reason.
I just object his being in the UFC at this point.
All right, which is, fair, but I think it's also fair if people want to make the argument for Henry Cejudo beating Demetrius Johnson.
Yeah, you can make the argument.
Okay.
And I don't think it's wrong.
Okay. The last show says otherwise.
No, I take issue with the current scoring system. I take issue with I said in the previous show, part of the problem is the scoring system is so profoundly inept that
Okay.
in this instance you could make there is a argument for Cejudo winning that is not inherently contradicted by an argument for Demetrius Johnson winning.
Okay. And I think there's also an argument that we need a more streamlined process for the rule system.
There is.
That is,
and we really
that
need
is,
to do something
that
about
is
that.
more than doable if the will is there to do it. I believe that.
There's at least two major logistical hurdles to that.
I mean,
but
I'm sure there are a bunch.
Oh, there's at least one state, and I forget.
What? I'm sure there are a lot of logistical hurdles to doing things about weight cutting, but I feel like it's going to happen at some point.
I only bring up the major logistical hurdles with that because I think it's Virginia. I can't remember which state, but there's a state that doesn't actually have an athletic commission.
Right.
In order to alter the rules by which various athletic contests take place in the state, you have to actually amend the state constitution. That's how they're set up.
I think there's something to be said. Now weight cutting is becoming a big conversation, and maybe that's uncomfortable, but as the sport moves forward, I think we should be having these conversations. We should be talking about these things.
We'll see. I mean, weight cutting's a weird one because...
In your opinion, Robert, just to ask, is extreme weight cutting cheating?
No.
That's what's getting talked about now.
That's a stupid notion. Look, cheating occurs when someone violates the agreed upon rule set. That's it.
Okay.
That is flat it.
Is it legalized? Is it legalized cheating?
It's not cheating if it's legal. By definition, it is not cheating.
Okay.
I mean, it seems to be that part of the argument there is trying to reinforce the fictional notion of a fair fight.
But was TRT, if testosterone gives you a performance enhancement, and it really does help you.
Okay.
And it extends your career. Is that not like bending the rules?
Look, the controversy
is there not a serious issue there?
The controversy around TRT, even at the time, was that it was... How do I say this? A lot of the argument from that seemed to be a moral sense of indignation that people were utilizing a legal and approved therapy.
But then,
hang on. To cover up prior indiscretions. Right. A lot of the argument was if you need TRT in these levels in your mid 30s to mid 40s, you must have abused steroids in your 20s to early 30s. That was a lot of the argument.
But before a while, like the commissions let Vitor do it, right?
Yeah.
And you can't tell me that Vitor looked different when he was off TRT.
Yes,
now,
he did.
Did it really help him a lot? I think it helped him. I think what it did help him with is extend his career as long as it did.
Yeah, there's things it helped him do. That's certainly true. But if he followed the appropriate legal structures, then how bent out of shape are we going to get about this stuff?
Okay. But was it legalized cheating for him to do it as long as he did?
It's not cheating if it's legal.
After he failed drug tests as well.
Look, if the commissions wanted to put some sort of caveat on people with failed drug tests in the past utilizing TRT, that's on them. If they say, sure, you guys can use TRT if you meet a set of circumstances, and Vitor met their set of circumstances, then so what?
Sure.
He's utilizing the rule set to his advantage. Everyone should do that, quite frankly.
So even if it's bending the rules or exploiting the rules, you think it's okay? is what you're saying. Because that.
Hang on, let me.
I mean, I could be wrong because that kind of sounds like what you're saying.
I mean, look, for me, the definition of cheating is a very strict one. Did you break the rules?
Okay, so you have a very what's the word? Very non. Your view of cheating is very specific and arbitrary.
It's not arbitrary. It's very specific to the rules.
It's not flexible. It's inflexible, is what you're saying. View of cheating.
I mean, again, like the question becomes: if I start extending it to other things, like where does it stop? How much am I going to complain about? I mean, what's the major argument about people who know how to manage an extreme weight cut properly? Like, what is the fundamental underlying argument against this? Because there's one that I potentially accept as valid and is part of a discussion we need to have, and that's
I think the discussion, the argument is you're not fighting at your natural weight, and you're trying to be, and you're trying to one up your opponent by being bigger and stronger by losing an unnatural amount of weight beyond what you should be. Look, so the next day you'll be bigger and stronger than your opponent.
You should do everything you can within the rules to be bigger and stronger than your opponent. You should do everything within the rules to be better than your opponent in every possible aspect.
Right. It's not to you. It's not a valid argument.
No,
it's invalid.
No more valid an argument than Chuck should. Than saying someone like Chuck Liddell should fight. Not be able to throw his right hand as much because he hits harder than I do.
Okay.
I mean, you're not fighting at your natural weight. Sure, there are benefits and consequences to those decisions.
But it's also very we know it's also very dangerous, and we know
that's the only argument I accept as far as we need to deal something with weight cutting because it is catastrophically bad for you.
To me, it's alarming. More so that maybe I don't agree with the legalized cheating, but I'm very alarmed when I hear Rafael dos Anjos saying he was passing out 3 times during his weight cut in the run-up to the fight with Eddie Alvarez where he got slept. To me, that's very alarming.
And he got slept because of it. And I don't want to say specifically because of that, but...
And to me, it just says, and when you have instances like with Habib and the tiramisu and the botched weight cut and all that, to me, it just says, I feel like we can't expect fighters to be responsible anymore because I believe they're not responsible, Robert, and they can't be trusted to be responsible. That's my general feeling. And maybe that's flawed or wrong, but if we can't trust them to be on their honor system,
they're not necessarily.
I don't feel like we can trust them to cut weight responsibly either at this point. That's my general feeling.
Again, like
now, maybe
there are already built-in consequences to that situation. Again, Khabib should have fought for the title sooner than he did.
Should a consequence be death? Should it be brain damage?
I mean, you're getting hit in the head for money. You're going to be brain damaged.
All right. But I feel like we should be eliminating as much of that risk as possible, right?
I don't know.
Did you ever see Rush?
The Ron Howard movie?
Yeah, the Ron Howard movie. Now, maybe
a while ago, I think.
Okay, so I don't know if this was ever said, but one of the drivers in that movie says, there's a certain amount of risk when we go out there on the track, and we shouldn't. And basically, when the roads were wet, he basically made this argument: I'm not willing to accept the higher risk because it's beyond. Because he was basically saying this is beyond, like this further amount of risk is beyond what we're signing up.
It's not worth what you're paying me. Yeah,
right.
Which is fine if that's what he wants to. Which is his prerogative. You don't race, you don't get paid, you lose points for the rest of the season, your sponsors are unhappy, your team's unhappy, etc.
So shouldn't we at least try to eliminate these risks to make it as not really safe, but just to eliminate these other potential warning signs that could hurt a fighter when it can easily be prevented.
I part of it is I just don't know what you would do. And this is one of those things that gets...
Well, I'm not going to praise ONE FC, but they have a system in place, do they not? Don't they have
theory.
Why can't we have some sort of baseline thing?
I mean, California has a thing in theory.
Okay. Why can't that be an industry standard?
We don't know how well it works yet. We actually don't know how well California has applied it. There's not enough data.
Should we not? What if we weighed fighters the day of the fight and we announced their actual cage weights?
I'd like that data collected just to have it. I mean, because I think it's interesting, and I do think this is stuff that we need to look into. But I also... Well, for example, MMA Junkie, they had that data collected about fighters missing weight. Yeah.
And the increase in fighters missing weight since morning weigh-ins started.
Oh yeah, huge increase.
Was insane.
Oh yeah, massive.
And now, arguably, early morning weigh-ins benefits the fighters, but is it really benefiting? But is it benefiting the organization? If fighters are missing,
which is the question the UFC needs to ask.
Is it benefiting the fight? Is it benefiting the fighters when guys are missing weight and they're losing fights to guys who are missing weight? I'm not sure is that really a benefit? I mean,
it depends on how you. It depends. I mean, honestly,
then they have they get a pay hike for fighting a guy who missed weight, but then they lose to that guy.
Quite frankly, I think too many fighters
also increased after early morning weigh-in started.
Yeah, you went from something
to me that's startling.
Well, by definition, with early morning weigh-ins, if you missed, you had more time to rehydrate, so it became less of a performance issue on fight night.
Now, I've always been in support of the idea that if someone misses weight, take away even more money, take away half their purse or something.
Honestly, this is my perspective on this. My feeling is, if your opponent misses weight, don't fight, and because
I mean that's a good point too.
I mean, look, we'll fight him 20%. No, I'm not going to fight him.
And who was the female fighter who did that and now is out of the UFC?
Leslie Smith. Yeah, she got raked over the coals for that, which was just abysmal for my. If your opponent misses weight, you are no longer legally obligated to fight them. That's just the way that is. You sign bout agreements for a weight class. If someone misses, there's a reason you have to renegotiate that stuff. And
it happened with John Dodson too, but he's still with the UFC. At the moment.
Leslie Smith was making noise about, about getting the circumstance of fighters before the National Labor Relations Board, and the UFC just didn't want her around. So they orchestrated a circumstance by which they could do so.
Let's get back to this Fight Night card. Not an excellent card, but one I'll watch for sure.
All right. The main event... hang on, there's something I want to say briefly about this thing about natural weight classes. I don't understand... let me say this. I kind of do understand how we arrived at this point, and this is more of a societal thing and a culture thing, even within MMA. We really need to come to grips with the fact that there is no such thing as a fair fight. And I don't know why we all have such a hard time with this. There is no such thing.
Okay.
When we say a fair fight, what we actually mean, especially in MMA terms, is that everyone fights under the appropriate rule set, and everyone obeys the rules, which actually happens shockingly less than it should anyway. But the notion of, fairness is stupid. Daniel Cormier versus John Jones, I'll use that as an example here. That's as competitive a fight as you can find, especially for that division. There's nothing fair about it. John's 1.5 feet taller.
No, he's not.
However much taller he is. John's what, 6'3", 6'4"? Sorry, not 1.5 feet. I exaggerate. He's 6 inches taller.
I mean, most people Daniel Cormier fights are taller than him.
Yes.
He's 6'4".
Yeah, John. Yeah,
if
John's
that's
6'4".
Even his real height. If that's even his real height. Cormier's he's always been short.
Yeah.
He's
5'10", right?
Okay, so I
forget exactly what it is.
Yeah, but here's what.
Hang on, no. Let me make my point.
Cormier is an Olympic wrestler.
Hang on, let me make my point. There is nothing fair about John Jones being taller and longer than Daniel Cormier. Now, Daniel Cormier just has to deal with that when they fight. There's nothing fair about.
It's not fair for John Jones to fight an Olympic wrestler.
Yeah,
a guy with Olympic wrestling.
Yeah, it's not fair for a guy whose best wrestling accolade was somewhere in the junior college level to fight a guy who was favored to win gold at one point. There is no fair. Someone's always going to be bigger, longer, faster, has more technical application, has better cardio, comes into the fight more healthy than the other guy.
I think you're stretching what fair means. I think when people say fair, they mean within the rule set, and you're not trying to game the rules.
No, you should game the rules. That's the point.
I guess.
And again, I object to
purposefully foul, you get fouls and try to get away with it within the rules.
No, that's cheating, and that should be punished. The fact that it isn't is on the officials, not anything else than that. But again, the rules say you weigh in at a specific weight. If you can make that weight within the rule system, I don't care that you're 6 inches taller and have a 80 some odd reach, and you're fighting a guy that much shorter than you.
My thing is not so much the cheating or calling it cheating; it's the danger to the athletes.
Yeah, and that's the big thing that we're going to have to reckon with going forward. And I think it's a conversation everyone should be having in the sport should be having right now. Yeah, and that's anything that pertains to weight cutting. I believe that's the only argument that has any sort of validity, is trying to find a healthy way to do this to prolong the quality of life of fighters. Because
I'm going to give you the perfect example.
All right.
I really believe, now this is just my opinion, I believe Cole Miller torpedoed his entire MMA career due to the belief that he had to be a featherweight fighter. And he wanted, because here's a big long guy, had a, fairly decent run at lightweight, but thought he had, this is what he told Ariel Helwani, I got to be big and strong and heavy for my weight. But it didn't really. But when I would see him fight, at featherweight, he had no speed. He looked slow and sluggish, and he was getting easily outstruck and outpointed by smaller guys, Robert. And I don't think it helped. And he's stuck at that weight for the rest of his UFC run, and he hasn't fought since 2016. And I feel it did not prolong or help his career at all to the idea that he felt he had to be a featherweight.
No, it probably didn't.
When you talk about a natural weight, I believe for this kid, featherweight was not his natural weight.
It wasn't. And he's a great cautionary tale about just because if you want another example, and this has nothing to do with weight cutting, about how much being bigger can be not useful. Hey, there's Stefan Struve.
Look at Robert Whittaker as a welterweight.
Yeah, he was a middle of the road welterweight. I mean, just utterly. I don't want to say forgettable, but straight middle of the pack.
Now he's the best middleweight in the
He's
world.
the best middleweight in the world, yeah.
After he moved up.
Yeah, fighting. The issue with optimal weight classes is that it varies so drastically from person to person, and it varies from person to person over time. There are times when maybe you can make a more drastic weight cut safely and still perform at essentially peak condition. I'm not saying
Cole Miller would have been a lightweight contender or anything. And yeah, lightweight is a Shark Tank, but I feel he would have been more effective fighting at a more comfortable weight than being this big, lumbering, and slow featherweight. I mean, you remember some of his featherweight performances. What weight do you?
God help me,
what weight do you think he was better? What weight do you think he was better at?
He was better at lightweight.
Right.
I mean, he was. So, I would argue he was never all that good to begin with, but he was certainly better at lightweight.
I would agree with all of that, but I generally enjoyed his fights at lightweight, and to me, at featherweight, he didn't even look like the same fighter.
Well, he looked like a corpse. I mean, he looked like he somehow made BJ Penn at featherweight.
And I don't know why.
And I don't know why
no one ever came to him and just said, let's. And maybe they did. I was never there in training, but
I assume somebody did at some point, and he just didn't. He didn't want to. So.
He did get
suffered because of it.
He did get a few wins. He did get a few wins at featherweight and almost got a fight with Conor McGregor. But, and to me, that's just the argument for fighting at a more natural weight and not trying to game the system just to be the bigger guy, because it's not always going to give you an advantage.
No, it's just not. There are times when it will,
I think we can move on from this.
Well, it's actually a decent enough segue, because we have in the main event James Vick. And I bring that up specifically because...
I like James Vick.
Well, I bring that up specifically because fighting at lightweight, James Vick is 6'3".
Right.
He is a massive lightweight in terms of his height.
Right, but he's not a thick guy. He's like a lanky... He's a lankier dude. He's not like big. He's not like big and thick.
No, but I genuinely wonder how much longer he'll be able to stick around at lightweight. I mean, again, he makes that cut relatively well, right. But
hopefully he can do it okay. Some guys. I didn't even know Mike Chiesa was having trouble making weight until he did.
Oh yeah, he'd talked about
that was never
an
issue. I never recall him looking especially big as a lightweight either. I never thought he was Chiesa.
He's kind of one of those. You don't necessarily think about this if all you do is see him in the cage, but he's a kind of and I don't mean this as a negative. He's a raw boned guy. There's a lot more length and a lot more meat on his bones than you think if you happen to just see him, if you only see him fight. I mean, Kevin Lee's kind of the same way, that guy.
All right. Well, does Justin Gaethje have a chance in hell against James Vick here?
Yes, he does. I wouldn't say it's the best chance in the world, but he absolutely does.
Does Vick have to avoid making this an ugly, not playing? Gaethje's going to want to make it an ugly brawl. Does he have to basically avoid letting this become a bar fight and use his wrestling?
Let me think. For Vick, there's two things he has to do, primarily. One is maintain distance, because much as I love Gaethje's fights, I've gone on record. I think that guy can't see. I think there's something up with his vision that prevents him from fighting all that well at distance.
His eyes look a little weird, don't they? He looks a little like cross-eyed, doesn't he?
Have you never seen the glasses he wears?
I haven't.
He has these Coke bottle glasses that I don't know if he still wears them all that often, but
are they not giving him vision tests in his medicals?
I don't know. I mean, I would assume they are, but I mean, I've heard him likened to Harry. I've heard him likened to Harry Greb, who's an old boxer from the
Yeah, I
20s.
see it now.
Well, and I actually kind of like...
He's got a thick prescription, I guess.
Yeah, and I like that comparison because Greb and Gaethje have a lot of similarities in their fighting styles, and Greb in particular, who fought... Oh, he fought the majority of his... How many fights did he have? 298 professional boxing bouts. He fought the majority of those completely blind in his right eye. And I love how he got around that, too, because he actually memorized the eye charts. So anytime someone would ask him to, close his good eye and read, he just had memorized what each line was. So they'd say read line 4, he had memorized what the line was. And there's some similarities in their style. They have to get close because they can't read distance well. It's one of the reasons Gaethje does so many leg kicks, especially in the clinch, because I think he can't see all that well, but if he can feel where your upper body is, he knows where your legs are basically going to be, and he can kick you. If you look at his counter game, it's a lot of rote repetition that doesn't really adjust once the fight starts. He does a lot of reaching, he does a lot of feeling, and I think there's something up with his vision that prevents him from fighting optimally, quite honestly. And Vic needs to keep this long, because he's the taller guy, he's the longer guy, and that's a distance Gaethje struggles with generally, much less against someone with these types of physical differences that Vic has in his favor in this instance. I don't know who will go to the wrestling first. I imagine whoever gets the worst of it on the feet. But when it comes to wrestling with these two, it's largely about who gets on top. Neither guy has a stellar bottom game, though Vic's is... It's not great, but he's got a weird enough... It's more his arms than his guard. Like if you get him down safely, that's fine, but the transitions can be weird. He's got long arms. He likes to try and lock stuff up.
Gaethje has a wrestling background.
He does, and he actually worked with his old collegiate wrestling coach a bit for this camp. I still don't expect him to use it all that much.
I mean, he should be prepared to defend takedowns, work in the clinch, those sort of things.
Yeah, Gaethje wants this fight close. That's where he's always done his best work.
Right.
He's either straight up.
But
in
he
the
wants
clinch or in
it.
the
If he
pocket.
wants it on the feet, he'll probably have to be prepared to keep it there.
I don't know. I have a hard time imagining Vic shooting for a lot of double legs. That's not his style.
Really?
To take. Vic's not a big outside shot guy. He's much more comfortable wrestling from the clinch, getting a body lock and working for trips.
When he started his career, he was more of a grinder.
Well, sure, but look at where his takedowns come from.
Right.
He's either countering you...
I mean, look, it's still grappling. He has to be ready. He has to be able to deal with a tough wrestler. Because he's fighting a wrestler.
I'm not sure... Hang on, I need to...
Vic's
more of a boxer than a wrestler.
No, he's not. He wrestled, right?
No.
Oh, never mind. I must be thinking of someone else then.
No, yeah, Vic's primarily a striker, and he likes to grab like guillotines when people try to take him down.
Well, I like Vic for this fight.
Yeah. Yeah, so do I. It's... Again, I love Gaethje, but he's got a close distance, and I'm not sure.
I like Gaethje, but he fights like an idiot.
He does.
You know?
Yeah, he does, and
that can make for an exciting fight, and it gets the fans on your side. Yeah, but I mean, do you want to win, or do you want fight of the night? Maybe that's a bad question. I'm just saying he's not we've talked about fighter IQ before, right, Robert? To me, Gaethje's fight IQ is not that high.
Gaethje's fight IQ is weird because on the one hand it is quite high, on the other...
I feel he's good
it's
instinctually.
unidirectional.
He's good at like swinging for the fences, but I feel a more technical opponent would pick him apart. And that's exactly what we saw in those fights with Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier, right?
What we saw in those fights was
miles more technical than Gaethje, I would say.
Poirier for a lot of that fight was. What that showed, for me at least, what those fights demonstrated was the value of discipline when fighting Gaethje. If you have a winning game plan, you just have to stick to it, and it's going to suck because you're not going to get out of a fight with him unscathed. But if you find something that is successful, you have to be disciplined about it.
It's the same thing. It's like the same thing fighting Nate Diaz, I believe, right?
In some respects, yes.
Just stick to the game plan and don't fall for his garbage. Don't listen to.
It's a crying shame we're never going to get Gaethje and Diaz. It's a crying shame.
I feel like that's one. Well, I mean, even that fight, I would favor Diaz, honestly.
I don't know. I actually would favor Gaethje in that fight.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, come on. What's Nate going to do about leg kicks?
I feel like Gaethje is so punch drunk now. I feel like it's a good fight for Diaz.
I mean, it's a good fight for everybody because it would be nuts, but
it's just that the way Gaethje fights, and I've seen it since the Johnson fight, I would pick almost everyone. I would pick almost anyone he fights in the UFC against him at this point.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he's very beatable.
There's some guy, anyone in the top 15, he's probably going to struggle again. I feel like once you get too far outside of that, there's a lot of guys who just melt under what he does.
And I think the main problem with lightweight right now is that it's just very top heavy, and guys haven't been able to fight each other for so long. And McGregor's been out of the picture. And we don't know what's going to happen with Ferguson's
apparently been cleared to return to training.
Yeah. So, but Ferguson, I mean, honestly, I feel like Ferguson deserves a shot too.
There's a few guys who are very deserving. Again, Tony was the former interim champion.
And then there's Poirier.
I mean, if Poirier gets by Nate Diaz, I mentioned this when they announced that fight. In the span of 6 months and a handful of days, I forget exactly how many, and that's like Poirier will have fought Gaethje, Alvarez, and Nate Diaz in a little over 6 months. That's insane.
To me, Khabib destroying Conor is a foregone conclusion. After that happens, will Khabib be able to stick around and defend the title? Because look, Khabib's had his issues as well.
Yeah,
we can't overlook that.
No, there's a lot of mass on that guy that you don't necessarily think is there. No, he's not going to be at lightweight forever.
I feel like the winner of this fight will go places, but probably not straight to the title.
No, there's too much weirdness going on right now in this division.
Lightweight it's hard, man.
I mean, it's a great division, but
you gotta win like 8 fights. You gotta win like 8 fights, basically. You gotta win 8 in a row.
You gotta win 8 in a row if you're winning boring fights. And
no, Donald Cerrone wasn't winning boring fights. Featherweight, Max Holloway wasn't winning boring fights. He was winning great fights.
Featherweight got hung up by, bear in mind, the common denominator in those divisions being hung up is, guess what? Conor McGregor.
Yeah. What should James Vick do here?
Again, a lot of this is fighting long. If he feels he has a significant grappling advantage and he can consistently get takedowns, he should. We have never seen Gaethje really have to fight off of his back. And some of that's because he's really good at not being taken down or initiating scrambles very quickly, but I like Vic to win here. I mean, again, I love Gaethje and I'll be rooting for him, but there's just too many stylistic problems here. Unless Vic's footwork goes to hell. was his last fight? The Trinaldo fight. He looked pretty good in that one. Duffy fight. I can't count Reyes because Reyes' footwork sucks too. I mean, Vic's only losses to Dariush, and that was just too much too soon, and he got clobbered by a guy who was on one of the best runs of his career. If Vic stays smart with his footwork and keeps off the fence, fights long, this is kind of his fight to lose in that respect. So yeah, again, I'm rooting for Gaethje, but I can't pick him in this instance. And if at all possible, again, I've sold myself on Gaethje versus Diaz just for insanity's sake.
Now, you talk about a guy, you wonder how he's still in the UFC. Michael Johnson.
Johnson's less of a... God, he is not on a good run, though.
If he loses here, should he be cut?
Yes.
Because that's like...
That would be 4 in a row. 2 at
4
lightweight.
in a row, and then 6, and then like 1 in 6 in 7 fights, basically.
Yep.
He really needs... But then Andre Fili has won his last 2. Granted, they were awful fights, and one was against Artem Lobov.
He got by Artem Lobov. He barely got by Dennis Bermudez.
This guy, all I remember is this guy getting so much hype because he was in Team Alpha Male, and he's just been...
Turns out he's just a typical alpha male fighter. Yeah, it's... I mean, he's on his first winning streak in the UFC.
A glorious 2-fight winning
glorious
streak.
Oh, God. I hate this fight. I really
Co-main
do.
event. To me, if you were going to make a fight the co-main, it should have been Alves versus Kraus.
That's probably the most meritorious one.
Or
you've got
Angela Hill versus Casey. Even.
I mean, yeah.
No, never mind.
I might make a meritorious argument for the first fight of the entire evening. Because you got Ronnie Yahya and Luke Sanders, who just neither of them are ever... They're doomed to forever be really, really good, but no one cares.
How old is that guy? Hard to believe he's 33. He's been around a long time, too. He's been around since, like, at least 2008, since the WEC days. Counting
his first pro fight was in 2002. His WEC debut was in 2007 when he choked out Mark Hominick.
I don't know if this is accurate, but his Wikipedia says he's 33. But he is from Brazil. So.
I'll go ahead and take that at face value, but he looks like an old 33-year-old.
He does. So if you told me he was actually 40 years old, I would believe it.
I might as well. Anyway, but as far as Johnson...
It's hard for me to believe he was born a year after me. It's hard for me to believe, even as a Brazilian.
Jeez, he's only a year older than I am. Wasted my life. Anyway, I hate picking Andre Fili because I don't think he's all that good. But, okay, you know what? I might pick Johnson. Let me think.
I'm picking Andre Fili.
Let me think about this for just a second, because Fili likes to... He's more of a striker than
anything. Johnson is not a featherweight, man. I'm telling you right now.
No,
and he looks awful at featherweight.
I mean, he had a decent... I almost can't say he's worse at featherweight than he is at lightweight, because when he fought Darren Elkins, he looked exactly the same as he does when he fights at lightweight. He's got a good 3.5, 4 minutes in him, and then everything falls apart. The question is, can he...
beat Edson Barboza.
Yeah, and he beat Tony Ferguson, but...
Yeah.
I mean,
then he loses. It's like, I mean, how does that happen, though? How do you have a guy... Because I feel even 6 years ago, I thought, Tony Ferguson was not the level he is now, but I thought he was good, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, he was good. There's two things that play into why he...
How does that guy lose to... I can understand losing to Miles Jury, but then how do you lose to a guy like Reza Madadi? Like, I can't fathom that at all.
No, and... I mean, Johnson's a really weird fighter. I mean, he lost the tough finale to Jonathan Brookins.
That's tough, though. You know?
Yeah, and then got hit with an inverted heel hook 2 fights later. I mean, it's just weird. He's just wildly uneven.
And now, But
I
then
mean,
he
again,
has these runs where he beats Lozon, Tebow, Goliard, Barboza, and then I don't know. It's like to me he's like one of these Jekyll and Hyde type of fighters, Robert.
yeah, and again, if you can get through that first round with him, you're probably going to win. All things considered.
Goliard and Barboza by decision.
Years ago. I mean, he beat Ferguson by decision, but that was...
By decision. He knocked out Castillo in the second round. Castillo's more of a grinding wrestler. Beat Lozon by decision. Lozon's one. He's kind of a he's the opposite of what I would call a slow starter, right? You would agree?
Yeah, Lozon's a fast starter.
He's a fast starter.
Well, half the time he's a fast starter.
Right, and then I feel Joanna. I feel she's a slow starter too. A slow starter though.
Yeah. Again, the way these two match up, I think if Feely gets out of those first 3 minutes, he's probably fine. The question is, can Johnson catch him in those first 3 minutes? Because for that first little bit, Johnson has fast hands and he can hit.
Yeah, and Feely's beatable.
I mean,
he is
Feely's
very
not
beatable.
Feely's not exactly a world beater either. I'll still go with Feely.
Feely's really he's been like a very middling fighter, or less than middling at featherweight.
You know what? Screw it. I can't pick Feely. I'm gonna regret this, and this is largely based on emotion. I got Johnson. I'm gonna regret that.
I'm picking Feely.
All right. Continuing this card going downhill, Courtney Casey fights Angela Hill. Casey's on a 2-fight losing streak. They were both split decisions. Granted, I don't think she won the Watterson fight. There might be an argument for her in the Herrig fight.
What about against Gedelia?
Yeah, she lost that clean. I mean, Casey's good, but she's got these hiccups, you know? And then there's Angela Hill, who has a pretty decent first round in her, and then doesn't really adjust. So if you adjust to her, she kind of falls apart.
I give credit to Hill because she's always had to fight the toughest opponents, considering her record.
Yeah, she went through deep water real
fast. At 2-0, fighting Tisha Torres and Rose. Now, granted, Rose does not have a ton of fights. Doug Rose, but still, to be fighting that level of competition, like when you're a 2-0 fighter, you're not getting any softballs here. And then she comes back to the UFC and fights Jessica Andrade. Yeah,
and got
Isn't that arguably a mismatch?
Oh, it was. It was a horrible mismatch. I remember people watching that fight and saying it's a great fight, and I was watching it going, no, Angela Hill is in so far over her head.
I think at least this is less of a mismatch for her.
Since the Andrade fight, she's been fighting people of her appropriate level. And Yoda, Ansaroff, and Morose. Those are appropriate fights.
This is an appropriate fight for her, too, I would say.
Yeah. These two are of roughly commensurate skill level at this point in time.
I'm going to pick Hill.
Yeah, I'll pick Hill, too. I don't know why.
I don't think it's a great fight, but I feel like her striking will match up better against Casey.
Yeah, Casey's a real weird striker. She's very low in her stance and kind of heavy on her lead leg, so if Hill invests in leg kicks, and she's a pretty good kicker.
I mean, she's a veteran, she's experienced, but look at her record.
Yeah, she's 7-6.
It's nothing to write home about.
And
she's one fight away from being a .500 fighter.
And, most of those losses came in the UFC. She's almost all of them. But if you're going to be in the UFC, you do have to be able to win in the UFC. All right, and in our theoretically feel-good fight of the night, Jake Ellenberger. This guy. Mr., 3 losses in a row. Mr. 2-8 in my last 10.
I think the only reason he's still in the UFC is because he's friends with Dana.
That's got to be it. I mean, this guy only has one win of anything approaching relevance in, 6 years? Because I'm not...
Do you want to credit him for the Matt Brown win?
Yes.
Or?
That's his one good win.
That was just over 2 years ago.
Sure,
but still, that was already after his career went on a downward spiral.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was on a huge downward spiral before that. I mean, his only other win in his last 10 fights was over Josh Koscheck in 2015. That means nothing.
Right.
I'm not entirely sure I give him all that much. I mean, knocking out Nate Marquardt in 2013, I'm not even sure matters all that much. I mean, come on, it was Marquardt at welterweight.
Yeah, but he was a Strikeforce welterweight champion and beat Tyron Woodley.
Yeah, but again, this was 13.
2013.
So that was his UFC. That was his coming back into the UFC
right.
after Tarek Safdie.
He was 1-1 after the loss to Tarek Safdie. So
it was right after the loss to Safdie, and he gets knocked out by Ellenberger. He gets knocked out by Lombard.
Woodley, lost by decision to Safdie, and then got knocked out by Ellenberger. So.
Yeah, then got knocked out by Lombard after. Yeah.
Okay, but still, was a welterweight champion and had beaten the undefeated Tyron Woodley at that time.
Woodley undefeated at that point?
Well, I think
he was. He was. That was Woodley's first loss. That was his 11th fight.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway,
so to me, maybe it doesn't count a whole lot, but that did count for something at the time. And that's why I would say, yeah, in 2013 he was arguably still easily one of the top welterweights in the world.
Easily top 20 welterweight.
That was all right. It was over 5 years ago, but it was still in 2013. So there you go.
And he's now fighting Brian Barberena. Barberena, who is a smaller welterweight.
Mid-level to me.
Fairly middle of the pack, average kind of guy.
Inconsistent. Also inconsistent.
He's consistent. There's a consistent level of opposition he will lose to.
Okay.
And the question becomes, does Jake Ellenberger still fall into that category? And
to me, all Barberena has to do to win this fight is walk into the cage.
Yeah.
That's all he has to do.
I mean, I can't pick...
Ellenberger is going to trip on a banana peel or trip over his toes or trip over the octagon or something. And then he's going to, pie face himself into the canvas.
I mean, I can't pick Jake Ellenberger over anyone at this point.
And look, I like Jake Ellenberger, Robert, but I mean, how do you define, just what happened to him? I can't...
Testing. I'm not joking. Look at his physique when he fights Condit and Pyle in his first couple of UFC fights. Just look at him as a physical specimen.
Oh, didn't he train with Edmund Tarverdyan, or who was Ronda's coach? Who's Ronda's coach?
It was Edmund. No, he's not there anymore and hasn't been for a while, but he did spend some time there.
Glendale Fight Club, right?
Yeah.
That didn't help him at all, right? I feel that guy ruins careers.
I mean, in fairness to Ellenberger, his career was already ruined. But, yeah, that didn't do him any favors. I mean, his only win, again, the Matt Brown win, was when he was out of King's MMA for a little bit. But I think I can't remember if it was the Masvidal or the Perry fight that he was with Glendale and then just, got smoked and went no. I don't know where he is right now. But yeah, I can't pick him to beat, a ham sandwich at this point. It's just not going to happen.
And yeah, so all Barberena has to do is show up and he'll win.
And he'll show up.
This is like one of the you're really going to get a gimme fight in the UFC. This is the gimmiest of all gimme fights. you could ask for at this
Well,
point.
he could have asked for Mickey Gall, who's also on this card.
Mickey Gall, I think, got full of himself because he beat CM Punk and Sage.
I'm just saying, Mickey's probably an easier fight than Brian Barberina. That's all.
Does Eric Anders redeem himself after that loss to Machida?
He should have won that fight. That was such crap. Anyway.
I don't remember you saying that at the time.
What did I say at the time?
I don't feel like you were. I don't feel you felt that strongly about it. But John Moraga's fighting too, and he's on a winning streak.
Poor Moraga, man. That guy got rushed.
You know what? Moraga could be in a very good position right now.
Yeah. I mean, I feel bad for Moraga because he became emblematic of what the UFC has done wrong with the flyweight division. He debuted in the UFC, got 2 wins, and got thrown into a title fight against Demetrius Johnson.
Well, they needed opponents. They needed guys to fight Johnson for the title.
And I understand that it was a weird circumstance, but he was in no way ready for that level of opposition. He got smoked.
When are you ever ready, though? Was Henry Cejudo ready?
The first time or the second?
The first time.
No.
But he was, undefeated, Olympic wrestler, gold medalist.
I'm not knocking the man's accolades, but he was not ready for.
Many
Demetrius
would say he wasn't ready in the rematch.
No, he was ready in the rematch.
Many would argue.
But
Robert, the point is, all the punditry and comments didn't give him a chance in hell to even win a split decision.
Yep.
You know.
Well, and again, like if you want to bring up other examples,
and that's why I resent a lot of MMA commentary a lot.
Well, hang on. Let me give you a couple of other examples since you brought that up. Both times, when Benavidez fought Johnson, he was ready both times. He lost, but he was.
No one. Yeah,
he was
but
at
at
that
the
level.
Time, when we say things like this, like we say T.J. Dillashaw isn't ready to beat Renan Barão, and then he beats Renan Barão. We say Holly Holm isn't ready to beat Ronda Rousey, and she beats Ronda Rousey.
Oh, sure, we're wrong sometimes.
We say Buster Douglas isn't ready to beat Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet, and he beats Mike Tyson. So I feel like we can't always use absolutes in this game.
Well, sure, I'm not, and I say that in hindsight in this instance because he was 13-1 going into that fight, and his best win was Chris Carriasso.
Right? How many wins did Demetrius Johnson have at that time?
At that time,
let's go back.
Hang on. When he fought, this is John Moraga. He had 21 fights.
Okay.
And he had fought Benavidez, Dominic Cruz, Miguel Torres.
All right. You know how many fights Chris Weidman had when he beat Anderson Silva? You know how many fights he had, Robert?
How many fights? He was
9. He had 9 fights.
Yeah.
He had 9.
Sure. And I am saying this specifically about Moraga because we have hindsight in this instance. At that time, he was not ready for that level of opposition.
All right. Well, that doesn't mean he shouldn't have been booked against Johnson.
And if he had been an exception to that circumstance, then sure, sometimes weird people get title shots. Dan Hardy did. It happens. But when you have, John Moraga, Chris Carriasso, I can't say that, but no, Tim Elliott was. That's not true of Elliott. Who was the other guy?
Because he knocked out. When did he knock out? He just beat Benavidez. He had beaten Ian McCall in the rematch. So it's not like there was a huge list of contenders.
No, again, and I understand that. I also think it's
like It's like when Alexis Davis fought Ronda Rousey. She had 3 wins and that was who they had available to fight her.
Yeah, again, it happens. I'm not arguing that it doesn't happen, but
or
even sometimes that it's necessary. It is necessary sometimes.
Right. You're making it seem like it's not, is what you're doing.
No, I just think this is what happened to him. He got rushed.
Yeah, I disagree.
Whether or not the circumstance, relative to his career, not relative to what the UFC needed at the time.
He's still John Moraga has still been one of the better flyweights in the UFC. Maybe not.
He hit that really rough. He hit that really rough stretch, though.
He did, but I mean, look, all of those that stretch of 3 losses, those were all by decision.
Yeah.
One was to Benavidez, and one was to Pettis.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's not. Again, he's not losing to nobodies, and those were competitive.
If you're Moraga, and you're in the division right now, you should be hungrier than ever because Johnson lost. It's a new day. It's a new day. The king is dead. There's a new king at flyweight.
Who's never going to defend the belt?
Well, we'll see. We'll see about that.
Never going to defend that belt.
Well, look. I mean, with that attitude, of course.
Look, if you're at flyweight, you start practicing how you're going to fight at bantamweight.
If you're at flyweight, you should be making noise and getting Cejudo to want to fight you. That's what you should be doing. You should be doing the Colby Covington thing because it works.
You're not going to get Cejudo to want to fight at flyweight.
Why not?
He doesn't want it. He doesn't like it. I mean, we said for a long time. We noted for a long time about his weight issues at that weight class. I mean, seriously, if you're a flyweight, you start packing on muscle and moving up.
With that self-defeatist attitude, of course.
If my attitude mattered, I'd adjust it. It doesn't. Anyway, Moraga's fighting Deiveson Figueiredo, who is... Matters. Sorry, what was that?
Go ahead.
My attitude doesn't matter. Not as it pertains to this.
Yes.
Who am I influencing? If my attitude is
Universe.
No, that is bull.
Clucky.
No, Clucky does not care about me.
Tommy Toeholt.
Nope. Fictional character, not a real person.
Yes.
I influence nothing. Okay? I influence the 20 people who listen to the show in some small way. That's about it. My attitude is utterly immaterial to the decisions that Henry Cejudo will make. Utterly immaterial. I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. It's not going to change one thing in the course of his existence.
All right. Well, I think it's not outlandish to think that Moraga could be fighting for the belt again in the future, if the belt still exists.
If the division still exists, no, it's not outside the realm of possibility at all. He needs
a couple solid wins. He needs a couple solid wins.
He needs this and then he needs a top guy.
But look, he's on the main card. This is a great opportunity for him to try and showcase himself.
And he's got a relatively...
He's got a
winnable fight.
Because he's the one on the winning streak now, and the guy and there's a new champion. That is good for him. That is very good for him.
I'm trying to remember some of these fights.
To me, it's only good if he's ready to exploit that opportunity. Because and my big pet peeve is fighters fail to do that so often.
God, who is... I have seen all of this guy's fights, and for the life of me, I can't remember them. Because he's fighting Deiveson Figueiredo, who is undefeated. He's 14-0. 3-0 in the UFC. I've seen all of these. I know I have. But I'm struggling to actually put a face to this guy. I mean, he's got two solid wins. He swallowed up Marco Beltran's, I think it was his eye that just blew up like a balloon. Knocked out Joseph Morales. This seems like a bit of a...
Well, this could be a coming out party for him, or it could be sending him back down the ladder.
I tend to think that's what'll happen. Again, Moraga seems to have finally really kind of found his stride over the last little bit.
If he beats Moraga, this could put him on the map too.
Yeah. This is a big opportunity for him. That's very true.
Big step up in opposition.
Yes.
Main card in a main card fight. So, Figueiredo, he's from Brazil, or Figueiredo?
Figueiredo.
Figueiredo. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it.
I don't know. It's weird. The rules for pronunciation are always weird.
Davison Figueiredo. He's undefeated. Yep. Undefeated in the UFC. 3-0 in the UFC. So they're giving him a step up here.
Yeah. He's got a shot to put a stamp on himself here.
Yeah.
I kind of like Moraga. Moraga's, the more proven commodity at this point, especially at this level, but I'm not going to sleep on Figueiredo, I'll put it like that.
I've always liked flyweight because, it's high athleticism on display, is it not?
It's fast-paced. It's very rarely, plodding.
Yeah, and I've always enjoyed that at flyweight guys don't get tired after 2 minutes. Like they have, usually they have gas tanks. And if you really sit down and look, there is technique on display.
Oh,
very good technique.
There's a lot of it. A lot of it is just too fast for the average person to really process.
Right, and it disappoints me that MMA fans don't agree, by and large, but they're generally...
It disappoints me that the division's going to be blown up, but...
Fighters are generally... MMA fans are generally... And combat sports fans in general are generally prejudiced against smaller fighters.
Depending on where... Nah, I wouldn't go quite that far.
Yes.
Some of the biggest draws across the sports have been in lower weight classes. You just have to have the right combination of personality to go with ability.
Yeah, but it's rare. Not everyone can be Gennady Golovkin.
Gennady and Gennady is 155 thereabouts. You have Lomachenko, who's 130s. Manny and Floyd are both smaller weight class fighters.
In other words, Robert, there's a small handful. Small handful. And now it's Anthony Johnson and Deontay Wilder, who everyone's going crazy.
I hate Wilder's fights so much. You have no idea. I'm not entirely sure.
He's hot right now, though, is he not?
He's got it. How do I say this?
Like my dad is an old heavyweight boxing fan, and he was sitting me down to watch Joshua and Wilder fights when I went home over the holidays.
Yeah, no, I like Joshua a lot. He's a really technical heavyweight. I can't stand Wilder's fights because the majority of what he does is just wild.
Is he going to beat Tyson Fury?
That fight's not on the immediate horizon yet.
40-0.
I know. Again, when I say I hate his fights, it's not that he's the worst fighter in the world by any stretch of the imagination. But he gets by on wild power more than anything else. And I've always said if he and Joshua fought, Joshua would carve him up. Fury, I don't know. Fury's looked weird his last couple of fights, but he's coming off of that layoff with all the weight gain that he put on. Fury's still getting back into actually competition shape. He's still in tune-up mode.
Didn't Fury have some sort of personal thing a while back?
I don't know. He's always been weird. He's always been a profoundly weird guy.
Wasn't he raised by travelers or something? I'm not trying to be politically. I thought, didn't he come from a family of Irish travelers? Or?
I don't know the specifics of his background off the top of my head. But no, it's a shame that we'll never get Wilder and Joshua because neither of them really wants it. But anyway.
Okay, so apparently Fury said he was dealing with a cocaine and drug habit.
The way he looked doesn't surprise me at all.
and depression.
Also doesn't really surprise me. I mean, and again, he's a weird guy, which is, and to be fair, combat sports as a profession attracts weird people. It's just kind of goes with the territory. Anyway, our last fight on the main card here is a middleweight fight between Eric Anders and Tim Williams. Was this always this fight? Okay, this is a gimme for Anders. Anders was
well fight for Eric Anders after he lost to Machida.
After he lost a dubious split decision to Machida.
They let go to Bellator.
That's true. Machida's in Bellator and will be a 3-weight world champion.
Good for him.
I hope he got paid. That's all I'm saying.
Tim Williams. Cab driver? Is this a cab driver situation?
I almost want to say he's was he on one of the Tuesday Night Contender fights?
Maybe. Let me see.
His name
nope.
is...
He lost to Oscar.
Oh, Pihota.
Pihota
knocked him out. Okay.
Versus, okay.
I remember.
So
this
they're trying to give Anders a gimme. This
is a get-well fight for Eric Anders.
Lost to Anthony Smith in CFFC twice. Lost to the...
You get a lot more rematches on the regional scene. There's not as many guys.
Yeah.
Especially when you're good.
He beat Nashan Burrell. Remember him?
I remember Nashan Burrell.
Okay.
Yeah, I got Anders here. He's gonna punch his head off.
I mean, Eric Anders to me isn't even a world beater, but I think he can win this fight. But we'll see.
I mean, again, I thought he won the Machida fight. In all fairness. And
man, I like this Kraus Alves fight.
That's actually
good lately.
Yeah, this is actually a really like one of the more interesting fights on this card is once we get into the prelims. Yeah, James Krause and Warley Alves. Krause is on a 4-fight winning streak.
Yep.
I mean, we're not talking the greatest of opposition here, but 4 in a row is still nothing to sneeze at.
I think he had some layoffs, and I think he had that Ultimate Fighter break as well.
Yeah. And then you have Alves, who's on a 2-fight winning streak. His only losses in the UFC are to Brian Barberena and Kamaru Usman.
Alves is good, too.
It's a good fight. Who I think's going to win this? I'll go with Krause.
I mean, Alves is not like elite yet, but he's been making. He hasn't really been making a lot of noise, but he's quietly built a decent resume, I think.
Yeah, I'll go with Krause here. I don't know. I'll go back and forth on that one a little bit, but I'll go with Krause.
Submitted Colby Covington.
Caught him in a guillotine when Colby shot a naked double leg on him.
I like Alves here.
Yeah. We also have Yuri Alcantara and Corey Sandhagen. Yuri just broke a 2-fight losing streak.
Knocked out Joe Soto. Let's see, Corey Sandhagen.
He's had at least one fight in the UFC, I seem to recall.
8-1. Yeah, Austin Arnett at UFC on Fox 27.
Oh, God, that fight was so bad. I remember that fight. It was awful. It was just awful. Yeah, Yuri should take him apart. We have Andrew Sanchez trying to make my life even more miserable. Thanks, buddy. Sanchez is on a 2-fight losing streak. He was finished by both Anthony Smith and Ryan James. He is fighting Marcus Perez. He was supposed to fight Antonio Braganeto. He's also on a 2-fight losing streak. That actually would have been a more interesting fight in some respects. Now he's fighting Marcus Perez. He should win this fight. It will be a terrible decision, and I will want to kill myself. Because that's just how Andrew Sanchez fights go. We have Mickey Gall and George Sullivan. Gall coming off of that loss to Randy Brown. And Sullivan, 2 losses, one to Yakovlev, one to Price. I kind of like Sullivan here, actually. Gall's striking is still just ugly as sin, and he needs to get on top if he's grappling, and Sullivan's got a decent wrestling game. Then on Fight Pass, we have Joanne Calderwood and Kalindra Fahea. Does she want it pronounced Faria? I can't remember how she prefers it pronounced. Calderwood's on a 2-fight losing streak, losses to Jessica Andrade and Cynthia Calvillo. Faria, where's she from? She's Brazilian.
Brazil.
I know, but I want to say that like the last time she fought, they mentioned she wanted her name pronounced with a more traditional R. I don't know. I can't remember, honestly. I'll go with Fahea. Fahea's on a 2-fight losing streak. She lost to Mara Romero Barella and then Jessica I. If you lose to Jessica I, you just suck.
Joanne's going to bounce back here. You'll see.
That seems like the desired outcome. Drew Dober on a 2-fight winning streak with wins over Josh Berkman and Frank Camacho. Camacho fight kind of sucked. Fights John Tuck. Why are these two still in the UFC? Tuck just broke a 2-fight losing streak by beating Takanori Gomi in 2017, which means nothing.
I almost feel like we should phase out the Facebook prelims. Not Facebook, the Fight Pass.
I mean, they're fine if you have a better quality of fight on them. I don't know. Dober probably takes that fight. Then at bantamweight, we have actually a decent fight. We have Ronnie Yahya, who's on a 2-fight winning streak, that one loss to Joe Soto, man, is just going to dog him because he had won 4 in a row before that. Lost that fight, has won 2 since, submitted both of them. But that occasional hiccup...
That's kind of been the story of his whole career, really.
That occasional hiccup is going to stop him from ever really getting a top-level fight. I like Yahya, all things considered.
I can't believe he's 33 years old. There's no way.
He looks older. That's all I'll say about it. Some old people look young, some young people look old. I don't know.
It's possible, but it's hard for me to believe that he was fighting. He had to have been basically fighting when he was 16. Maybe that's why he looks older.
Which is not unheard of. Again, that's really not unheard of at all.
Fighting in the fight pits of Brazil.
Yeah, it happens.
He was probably fighting in the favelas, I guess. Where is he? He's from Brasilia. Is Brasilia more developed, Robert? Do you know?
Brasilia is the capital of Brazil.
I know that.
I mean, look, Brazil is not a third world country or anything.
No. But they have. I mean.
No,
there's a higher division between. There's less of a middle class than there would be in the U.S., right? You'd have to agree with that.
Yeah, there are larger portions that are that are less developed than there are in the U.S. Now, Brazilia's. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the demographic breakdowns, all things considered.
But this is a good fight, I guess.
Yeah, him and Luke Sanders is a pretty good fight. Sanders still trying to get over the breakup with Becky Lynch.
Oh, that's right.
And now that he is single, he's got no hope.
I guess he re-upped then if he's taking this fight.
Yeah, he fought Patrick Williams, beat him.
That was 4 fights. So I think usually most fighters on their first deal are it's around 4 fights usually.
Something like that.
It's usually 3 or 4, I think.
Yeah, I was kind of high on Sanders coming off, even in the loss to Alcantara because he looked so good for so much of that. But
I recall not being very impressed with the Patrick Williams fight.
No, it was just kind of there. I'll take Yahya.
I'm taking Yahya as well.
Yeah.
All right.
That will be Fight Night 135, which I will have coverage of this Saturday in the MMA Zone of 411 Mania. So stop by and say hello for those 5 of you who are going to be watching this card.
Excuse me. Yes.
God, this isn't even the actual lead. This is like sort of the lead into 228, but 228's a week later. Like we have another week off of actual events. Boy, they're really banking on 228 not sucking out loud to get some momentum going into the... Oh, man.
Cormier Stipe didn't draw, as I recall, right?
I don't think we've had the estimates yet that I'm aware of, but I don't believe... It wasn't gangbusters, they would have been crowing about it. And, I mean, I don't think 228's going to draw all that well either, but... Let me have a look at that. Because, yeah, you have...
Okay, I'm hearing... Okay, this comes from MMA Mania, but they're saying just under 400,000. So another number getting thrown around is 380,000.
So somewhere between 380 and 410.
That's from Dave Meltzer. So however much stock you want to put in Dave Meltzer.
So 380 to 410, somewhere in that range is probably where it'll wind up falling, which is better than they've been doing on some other ones, but still not great.
Yeah. Well, for a so-called heavyweight super fight, it's definitely not great.
Definitely not.
He only draws against John Jones, man.
That's very true.
He hasn't drawn really against any other opponents at light heavyweight.
Nope. Or at heavyweight, for that matter. And, I mean, him and Brock will probably do decent numbers, but... Anyway, oh god, 228, man. Hang on.
Czech Congo is still fighting. Wow.
Yes, he is. Yeah, 228 again. We have Woodley and Till in the main event. I'm going to laugh when Till misses weight and wins. Just going to laugh so much.
I'm picking Woodley.
I mean, sure.
I'm picking Woodley.
Like, if you want my actual pick, yeah, sure, it's Woodley, but...
You know, you're the guy who declared that Stephen Thompson was going to be UFC champion. So
I did.
I'm gonna remind you of that.
I did, and in fairness, I thought he won.
You have been punished. You've been punished for that prediction.
I've been punished for that prediction with the reign of Tyron Woodley. It's awful. It is just an awful, awful string of fights. I mean, and again, like, he probably wins a terrible fight, but I know, my official prediction for that is probably going to be Woodley, but I'm going to laugh when Till just walks him into the fence, clobbers him, but after he's missed weight. So he knocks him out cold, but doesn't actually win the belt. Montano and Shevchenko, that's not exactly a drawing fight. That is not a very drawing card. That is not going to do all that well. Anyway, so... But we'll preview that next week. But in the couple of weeks we've been off, what news came out, Jeff? What do we have to kind of break down for...
Let's see. Weidman versus Luke Rockhold. The long-awaited rematch is in the works for UFC 230. I like that fight if it happens at Madison Square Garden. This fight was originally supposed to happen at UFC 199. Remember?
Yeah.
They were supposed to rematch, and then Rockhold fight Bisping, and Bisping became champion. And then Weidman's he's just been sidelined so hard by injuries.
Yep. I mean, you've got... I hope the fight goes through, but... I don't know, man. Middleweight's in a weird spot. I still like Rockhold in that fight.
It's just with Weidman, can he stay healthy and can he fight, you know?
I mean, he can't stay healthy. There's evidence of this.
Injuries have dogged him his entire career,
yeah.
ever since he came into the UFC.
Even before he was champion and whatnot, he had injury issues.
Jose Aldo says he's going to retire when his current contract ends.
I'll believe
I think that's
if and when it happens.
I guess we'll see.
I mean, let me put it this way. I hope it does. I don't have a whole lot of reason to disbelieve him, but at the same time, fighters and retirements are weird. So I'll believe it if and when it actually happens.
Let's see what else here. Nina Ansaroff and UFC champion Amanda Nunes are engaged. Congratulations to them.
I will give them the same gift I give every couple when they get married. A coin. You flip it. If you call it right, congratulations. Call it wrong, just save yourself the trouble.
I don't know if this is true, but okay, let's see. GSP held a press conference saying he wants to fight the winner of Khabib versus McGregor at lightweight. Dana White says he's not interested in that fight at all.
Dana's just been snake bit by that fight.
I find it hard to believe if McGregor versus GSP is available, Dana would not want to book it. I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, I mean, I laughed when I think he said that the UFC doesn't need GSP's super fights or whatnot. Like, you're so full of crap, man. You're so full of it.
I will say though, I hate the idea of GSP fighting at lightweight, and I just can't believe that.
I would be surprised at it, but
why? I mean, look. If you're gonna book that fight, don't even try to make it lightweight. Just make it a catch weight or some other BS. Okay? Don't even try to make it.
I don't know, man. Well, look, if George can make 155, and he might be able to safely,
that's ridiculous.
I don't know.
Ridiculous.
I mean, let me put it like this: George is one of the 3 fighters walking the face of the earth who I will take at their word when they say something.
What do you make of this press conference?
Look, George wants I think George wants 2 things. I think he wants another big money fight, and regardless of Conor or Khabib, that's a big money fight for him.
Okay.
And I think he wants to be a 3-weight world champion. I think he wants to do something that he does not believe can be replicated by anyone else. And I think in all fairness, I like his chances against both of those guys.
If you hate the idea of Lesnar fighting for the heavyweight title, to me this is even worse.
Let me put it like this. I don't like him Q-jumping lightweight, but at least we're dealing with a guy who has a proven track record as an all-time great MMA fighter.
Is Dana going to hold the whole middleweight fiasco against GSP here if this fight comes up?
Trying to predict the pettiness of Dana White is beyond the scope of even artistic license. I'm kind of annoyed
with how that worked out too, though. Does that make me a bad person? Does that make me petty?
Not at all. I'm talking specifically about Dana White.
Well, I'm talking about GSP, and I don't like how he handled that whole thing.
He could have handled it worse.
I don't think he handled it well at all, quite frankly.
I'm just saying it could have been worse.
I think he handled it terribly.
He could have held the belt for another 8 months while saying he wanted to defend it and trying to get healthy.
He could have offered it to be a catchweight fight, for it not even. He should have campaigned for it to be a non-title fight.
He wanted the belt. Still does. I mean, again, I think he wants that 3-weight world title.
I don't respect that. I'm sorry. I can't respect that.
He wants to do something that's never been done.
That's BS, Robert. You can't just win a belt just to win it and not try to be a champion. To me, that's garbage.
Sure you can. Conor McGregor's made the most successful MMA career in history out of it.
I deny that. I refuse to accept it.
Again, Conor's entire career is predicated on that reality.
Conor at least worked to get to the featherweight title.
Sure, and George worked to get to the welterweight title and to establish himself in that division. After that, it's confetti.
All right. Not okay. All right, and I'm not okay with that, quite frankly.
That's fine. And again, lightweight has enough deserving contenders. We don't need to set it back further with this.
Right.
I'm not advocating for it to happen.
Don't make it a title fight because it's trash.
Look, if George is going to fight the lightweight champion, it will be for the title. I just don't want it to happen.
Hot trash.
I don't want it. Again, I don't want it to happen. I don't want that division set back any further.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
You totally do.
I'm just saying I understand. I know where George is coming from.
I can tell you do.
No, hang on, let me think.
Just because you enjoy. Could you want to know why? I know, Robert, because it's chaos, and you love chaos.
No, I don't love chaos. I love watching the world burn.
You always root for maximum chaos. You do it
when
all the time.
When I don't have some other dog in the fight, when I don't have some other thing that I want more, I want maximum chaos and hilarity.
All I'm going to say right now is please do not make this a title fight.
I mean, and look, the reason I say I don't want it to happen
doesn't even matter in this situation.
Look, I'll tell you why I don't want that to happen. I want Khabib and Tony. I really want that fight.
Yeah, UFC might never want to book that fight again because they tried to book it 4 times and it never happened.
I understand that, and again, I understand all of that. But if you're asking me why I don't want George versus the lightweight champion, because you've got at least 2 right now deserving contenders. You've got the best division in the sport, and you shouldn't continue to logjam it when you have a legitimate champion. I mean, we're not even talking about some bizarre situation like Michael Bisping, when everyone knows his title reign was a load of crap. We all know it. Even his fans know it. Like, oh, I won the belt on I won't say fluke, because that's a disservice to him and his fighting ability.
GSP?
No, Bisping.
Oh.
But you had a guy who won the belt in weird circumstances, had a money fight, and I put that in heavy air quotes, with Dan Henderson for his first title fight, rather than fighting a deserving contender for money, prestige, for money and revenge and all that other crap. Then rather than fight a deserving contender, fights George St. Pierre. Like, we all knew that was a bunch of hooey. It was a bunch of nonsense. It was a side. It was this bizarro offshoot of reality.
Can you tell me something? How is Artem Lobov still employed by the UFC? How is this possible?
He and Conor McGregor are friends.
But I mean, I kind of honestly. The whole reaction to this brawl thing has been so surprising and muted. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, where's all the scorched earth I was hoping for?
Buried under the financial realities.
How is Mac Life even still in business?
Well, of course they're still in business. They're still based around the biggest star in the sport.
But didn't they basically? But aren't they like accessories to like a riot, basically? Like, or was that all fake news?
They're only really accessories prior to the fact if you can kind of prove some sort of. It gets into this weird legal space.
Like, what do these guys have on McGregor that they're still getting credentialed by the UFC? Because I can't even get a credential anymore, and I didn't do any trash like this. I didn't let a gang of Irishmen into a building to assault a bus, like these reporters allegedly did, or was that?
Some of it's that. Some of it is how responsible are you going to hold them from a legal perspective for events they couldn't have foreseen?
Do you think Dana White made it up when he said that about the Mac Life people?
What, that they let Conor in?
Yes,
I thought that was confirmed. That's how Conor got into the building.
It came from Dana White, so we have to filter it.
I could have sworn there were other people that had been confirmed by other things. Like, there's video of them letting him into the building. That's how he got in. Otherwise, he couldn't have gotten onto the premises.
Is that not illegal?
Yeah, I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
Those people from ever coming to your events again. Because, I mean, reporters have been banned for less. They've been kicked out of the UFC for less.
Yep.
Out of events.
Hey, if you want the UFC to be consistent, I got, beachfront property in Oklahoma I can sell you.
I'm like, well, I'm disappointed. Either way, I'm disappointed about this.
That's fair.
Artem Lobov should not be in the UFC.
No, he should not.
And
Artem
the only
Lobov
reason,
sucks.
and you know what? If he can look himself in the mirror and believe the only reason he has a UFC career is because of Conor McGregor and he's okay with that, then all right, you know what? Good for him.
No,
Because you know what, Robert? Some people in life can only live in the shadows of others, right? I mean,
Very
that's
true.
a fact of life.
Yep, that's true.
You know, and and you know what? That's more than some people will ever get too, I guess.
Also true. There's a lot of people who will never make it to the UFC or get to be friends with a multimillionaire like Conor.
It has its perks, I suppose.
It does.
Just like writing for a website that allegedly assists in a gang assault. So I can assume that's the only reason why this website has not been scrubbed from the face of the earth.
I've never been to the website. I'm only peripherally aware of its existence. I just don't care.
Now, I do have a question for you. On any level, do you think Conor taking this fight is his way to pay back the UFC for this whole mess? Is coming back to fight, is this his way of making good to the UFC on this whole disaster?
I would not put it past part of the negotiation process that went on behind closed doors that the UFC, decided to part of their decision-making process was him coming back for this fight.
Not like they held a gun to his head, but
as a point of negotiation, if you want us to behave this way and take this course of action, you're going to come back and you're actually going to fight.
Yeah, that's what I'm. So, do you think that happened?
Wouldn't shock me at all. It wouldn't shock me at all if it happened. I don't think Conor knows what to do with himself in a lot of respects. So, having the ability to focus on a fight, and one that will make him a significant amount of money. I mean, this is going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, UFC events ever. When he and Khabib fight, you have two significant fan bases, a lot of publicity, a lot of talk. I mean, Khabib doesn't talk the same way Conor talks, but Khabib is not at all afraid to throw down verbally. You have two guys with a documented track record of smashing people. I mean, what more could you ask for? The only thing I'd ask for is less of a...
the Mac life to be banned from UFC events.
And
Artem Lobov from TV screens.
God, that would be great. But it won't happen. I mean, look, Lobov's... He's not good. I've said it for years that he sucks, but... It's just... It just kind of is what it is.
He lost to Ryan Hall in one of the worst fights I've ever seen.
That one wasn't that bad. And it wasn't good, but it wasn't that bad. I mean,
all right.
Gray Maynard lost to Ryan Hall, too.
That was one of the worst Ultimate Fighter finals, I think. But...
off the top of my head, yes, one of. I'd really have to go back and do some serious thinking, because there have been some really ugly ones. Like, Ross Pearson and Andre Winner was just terrible.
Oh, it looks like Becky Lynch turned heel. Way to go.
Yeah. Woohoo. It doesn't matter.
I think that's about it for major news, unless there's anything else you have to add.
I don't think there's been too much that broke. Let me see if they've fleshed out any events that we haven't touched on. No. We already knew about Nikita Krylov's return. 137. That is a terrible card. Good grief, that's a terrible card. We have Khabib.
Have you seen this Predator dog that's going to be in the Predator?
That movie is going to be so bad.
Like, what have they done to like? And there have been some bad Predator movies in the past, but
all of them except the first.
I expected more from Shane Black, or was it wrong for me to expect more from him?
No, it wasn't wrong to expect. Good grief, 229 is not a good card.
Because they took like a Predator head and put it on a dog, basically.
Yeah, it's it's not going to be good.
And like Predator, maybe you didn't love Predators, but I mean like the Hellhounds did not look like that.
No, they didn't. It's going to be a mess. God, 229's co-main is Derek Lewis and Alexander Volkov. It's just not a good card. Still do well because, again, Khabib and Conor, but we already knew about
that final.
Demir and Smith.
Sergio Pettis versus Formiga.
Pedersen,
Waterson, Herrig, the co-main. Just make that.
I mean, you've got rising. Rising 38-year-old prospect Oven St. Preux. This is such crap, man. Fighting Dominic Reyes. Reyes, like the lone prospect left at 205. And in all fairness, Reyes is pretty awesome, but again, it's just not a very good card.
Oh, look, you don't have to pad out a McGregor versus Nurmagomedov.
You don't have to offer some people anything other than Conor and Khabib. That's it. The rest of that card is utterly immaterial.
What do you have against Derek Lewis?
His last 3 fights.
What about Volkov? Volkov has been doing well.
I don't have anything against Volkov, no.
He's arguably a prospect.
Volkov? No, he's a legit contender.
So,
he's way past prospect territory.
All right. So, I mean, give him that.
Yeah, again, I think it's a weak co-main. That's all.
All right. Well, I would say put Herrig versus Waterson in the co-main.
God, that's a
I'd be
terrible
fun.
fight, too.
All right.
I mean, Waterson just broke a 2 or 3 fight losing streak, and I don't think Felice Herrig is any good.
It wasn't 3 fights. It was 2.
I said 2 or 3. I couldn't remember which one it was, but it was one of those.
It was 2. It was 2,
okay.
To Thug Rose and Tisha Torres. Yeah. Come on.
I hold the Torres loss against her significantly more than I do the Rose loss.
Thug Rose right before she won the title. Give her a break.
230. We don't have that full card yet.
The quality of your losses matter in this sport, Robert. You're the type of fan who will trash a fighter just because they lose.
Yeah, I trash plenty of them for winning bad too.
Yeah, but I mean, you'll disown them for losing as well.
That has indeed happened in the past.
No matter who they lose to.
Oh yeah, they announced the Curtis Blades versus Francis Ngannou rematch. Oh,
that's bad news for Ngannou.
That's bad news for everyone.
Blades is going to win that fight.
Probably. I mean, I heard the UFC
officially. Exposed. I said it. Did I not say after the Stipe fight, he's like the new Czech Congo? Did I not say that?
I heard the UFC officially downgraded his punching power from a Ford Focus at top speed to a Amish horse-drawn buggy traveling at about a decent trot.
Well, once again,
just not
Czech Congo. There was a time where Czech Congo was like an impressive heavyweight prospect.
No.
Yes.
No. At no point was he ever consistent enough to be someone we were excited about.
Yes, there was.
When?
It was like
when exactly were you excited about Czech Congo?
It was people were excited about Congo 10 years ago.
Who?
Plenty of people were.
I need like specifics because I never met or interacted with anyone who who was ever excited about Czech Congo.
All right. Well, Ngannou is the new. He's like the bigger Czech Congo. There you go.
Yeah, and if he loses this fight, he's probably one fight away from being just out of the UFC.
Well, it's 3 in a row. No, they would keep Ngannou.
No.
They would
if he
Ngannou.
if he loses this and then loses his next one, like if he loses to
No,
Blades,
I mean, for heavyweights have gotten more leeway.
some
They kept Frank Mir.
Sure, but Frank Mir also
And Overeem. And Overeem had a pretty rough patch too.
They also had enough history behind them to warrant it, whereas Ngannou had this meteoric rise.
Okay.
And if he has an equally meteoric downfall, they will cut ties with him quickly.
Okay, we'll see. It's not looking good for him now, but we'll see. I like Curtis Blades in this fight.
I hate the fight, but Blades probably wins. Let's see. Jeez, they have not fleshed out a lot of these cards. Have they announced Cerrone versus Perry when we were last on?
Yeah, I believe that was announced. That's a fun fight if it happens.
Yeah, somebody's gonna die.
I hope not, but
those two.
Yeah, it's happening. I think that was before
Yeah, it's the co-main for Fight Night
Denver.
139.
Denver. Yeah, good fight. I like that fight.
That's
Good
a good
fight for both guys.
Yeah. All right. Again, if they haven't fleshed any of these out, then I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. So
I mean, Cerrone has nothing to complain about with that type of matchup. You know, the type of fights he wants and looks for.
no, he is not being given a fight that's going to be stylistically boring.
Right. But it's partly on him too. My thing is, when fighters do that, you shouldn't expect a fighter to fight the way you want them to, you know?
Oh, it's the laziest complaint in the world.
I remember Jamie Warner used to do it. All right, you're in there too, you know, right? You can't.
Complaining about the other guy not fighting the way you want them to fight is the dumbest complaint ever. Of course, they're not going to fight the way you want them to fight. They're going to fight the way they want to fight to maximize their chances of victory.
It's not a pro wrestling match, you know.
My job isn't to carry you. My job is to kick your ass. It's a lazy complaint. All right. But on that note, I think that's everything we wanted to touch on here. So, Jeff, what do you got to plug? Movies, games. I know you do a lot of stuff. So, what's up?
I can't really talk about what I have planned yet because of legal reasons, specifically non-disclosures, but some very exciting stuff from movies and TV coming up. Hint, hint. I did review The Meg. I didn't review Crazy Rich Asians, but I did review The Meg if you want to look at that.
I reviewed The Meg as well. Still the #1 movie in the country for the second week in a row.
No, it was Crazy Rich Asians.
Did it really surpass it? Could have sworn I'd seen that The Meg had repeated.
Yeah, not a huge margin, but a significant margin. 25 versus 21.
Okay.
Crazy Rich Asians. So good for the guy who directed Gem and the Holograms. Coming back. One of the biggest bombs ever, managing to make a hit movie. Good for him.
Hey, racial pandering will get you a fair ways. I mean, Tyler Perry made a career out of it.
Oh, Robert.
Just saying, Tyler Perry's whole career is based on it.
That's not very woke of you, Robert.
Oh,
Hashtag woke.
Never say that on this show again.
All right. Well, thank you.
Just ever.
I'll say it again. That's not very hashtag woke of you.
Ugh. Look, I'm just saying, if Tyler Perry's career can be based around pandering to and appealing to a specific racial demographic, he's not the only one who can do it.
Tyler Perry has made other things.
Like,
He was in Star Trek.
what, as an actor?
Yeah.
Doesn't count. I mean specifically as a director.
Uh, hmm. Alex Cross.
Only an actor,
Okay.
and was terrible.
You mean strictly his writing, directing, producing career.
I'm thinking specifically of directing, but if you wanted to add writing in there a little bit as well, we can.
Are you saying all Jordan Peele does is racial pandering?
I'm not as familiar with Peele's work. I'd have to double check. He did Get Out, right?
Yeah.
What else has he done besides Get Out?
Well, Get Out was like his directorial debut. I mean, he wrote Keanu,
I have not seen Keanu.
which I did like, by the way.
Haven't seen it. I mean,
He's apparently going to work on this new Twilight Zone thing and something called Lovecraft Country, which is going to be a very sort of racially charged, like Lovecraft adaptation.
so I would, given what you've told me, I imagine I could probably say, yeah, sure, he does a lot of racial pandering.
Produced Black Klansman as well. Spike Lee's Black Klansman.
Spike Lee's terrible.
Okay.
Spike Lee hasn't made a decent movie.
All right, so are you
years.
saying all Jordan Peele does, the Academy Award-winning Jordan Peele, all he does is racial pandering?
Until he
Key
does stuff.
and Peele.
I haven't seen enough Key and Peele to... I haven't seen enough of his
First
work to
movie-
really comment on it.
First movie was Get Out. His next movie is something called Us, a social horror thriller.
I mean, look, I can't judge the totality of a man's work on when he's only directed one thing. That's
Okay.
I mean, that's just unfair to him and to a lot of other things. I can say that about
Fair enough.
Tyler Perry because there's enough work.
All right. I think that's a fair argument.
And I will say about Get Out, I did not enjoy it as much as a lot of other people did, but I do think it's a very well-made horror thriller. And as a guy who really likes horror movies, I appreciate one getting some recognition from, the wider populace as opposed to it simply being buried and dismissed as just another horror movie. So,
Okay. Well, thank you guys, and that's all I have for this week.
all right, we will be back next week. Again, we will just be reviewing UFC Fight Night 135 because UFC 228 does not occur until the 8th of September. So we'll be back on the 2nd of September to preview that. And again, we'll be back on the 26th to review this and to go over any of the major news. If you would like to find me around the world, I don't know why you would, but you can find me and Mark Radulich reviewing movies most Tuesdays on Damn You Hollywood. This Tuesday is our summer wrap-up episode where we go over the summer and movies that we reviewed, that we saw, that we didn't review. Talk about some of the finances, the stuff we liked, the stuff we didn't, all that good stuff. Our most recent review was of The Meg, which you can listen to anywhere you find this particular podcast, be that through Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, we're on iHeartRadio. Just any of those places where you find it, you can listen to Mark and I talk about The Meg. It was a discussion. I mean, it's a weird movie. So, you can listen to our review of that. And again, this Tuesday we're just having our big summer wrap-up. Then we're off of movies for a while because there's not really anything worth talking about coming out until Predator or The Predator or whatever they're calling it, which is going to suck. But that's primarily where you can find me. So until then, thank you all very much for listening. We're back, and we're going to be back for a few weeks in a row again, so yay for us. I'll see you then. Thank you again very much for all the support. Please continue to be well, be safe, and behave.